Of an unmarried couple, be close. In this lesson we look at how these keels are made in bulk. First, let's open the 39th one. Picometric modeling of lung queue at the Lung Exhibition Center. Let's open up this post-tube program. Let's follow up on the last lesson where we found this one. And then we shell it out. Let's take a look at the keel. It's actually attached to this side. I'll choose this side first, and then what about the attributes? Hide the structure first. It's clearer this way. So this keelet is made by a rule of what kind? In fact, it can be used to draw away from the structural line. That's it. We're on this side. Draw a structural line here. Draw a structural line here. And then the other sides are the same. And then the other sides are the same. But what about before pulling away from the structural line? You're blowing up polysurfaces into single surfaces. It's only with this that you'll be able to pull out of the structural line. Because it abstracts from the structural lines of the face. It's this one right here. One on this side. And then there's this structural line. We can then make a conduit for it. So let's take a look at the tube. Oh, what kind of program is it? First there's this face. In the last lesson we talked about, what you get then are these projection lines. We'll start by selecting this side. I'll hide it. Of an unmarried couple, be close. These are projection lines. I'll hide it for a while too. Hide this layer. Let's take a look. We're going to take this side. Do it all over again. We can. What about these tweeds? Repattern it. And after the proofs, we're gonna get this side. Let's take this side. I'll shell it. What about this side? What about its UV structure? It's parallel to this side. Parallel to this side. Okay, now we're going to pull away from this structural line. What about withdrawing from the structural line? First of all, let's say I take this surface as an example. Well, it goes in two directions. There's a UV direction. You can switch to this direction. Look in this direction. What about the other direction? You switch is this direction. Now that's the direction we want to go. What about, do we need to be on this thread? Or find a point in the middle of this surface to determine this line? So? We're looking for a UV point here. What about this UV point? We'll just use XYZ to represent. What about this UV point? What exactly is the value to be entered? We can right-click here to reparameterize, and after parameterization, what about this value? You can default to 0 here. So here's 1. What if it's the other way around? It's 0 on this side. This is it. Of an unmarried couple, be close. Let's switch this direction. Then it becomes 0 to 1. Let's say we draw off this line at this 0.1 position. So where are we going with this? What about withdrawal? How much is it? That's 1 minus this 0.1. This is actually the 0.9 position. This is the 0.1 position. So this is the 0.9 position. What about the center? It's the 0.5 position. So? The value I'm pointing at here is a value. What about here? It's just 1 minus. The value here is this. You get this. Let's say you got this. Then you have to get another one. You're this way. Let's look at this value. Interjection of surprise. Then the distance here is the same as the distance here. Because that's what you get when you subtract this value. What about with this wire? We can shell out. Let's say we get this line. What about me in this thread? I'm gonna make a pipe, right? First you need to find the beginning and end of this line. Then first you have to find the line. Take this starting point for example. This is the starting point. And what about this starting point? It's normal direction. So? You have to use this to find the normal direction. Looking for the French line. First you need to find the UV coordinates of this point on this surface. So you take this point. Project onto this surface. It has its own coordinates. Because it's a dotted line. Then it's a one-to-one correspondence. This is the line that corresponds to this surface. So we're going to give it a grouping. The dotted line corresponds to the dashed line is a one-to-one correspondence. And then after finding the normal direction of this, then we're going to exist. What about this thread? Wear a work plane. You're wearing your work clothes. It may not be this normal direction. So? That's the command we'll use. Take over this work plane. And where does it go from here? It's the direction of its normal. This is good. This side is straight. And then on this normal, let's give it another value. Let's say this is x. What about x? It's down. So it's minus 0.1 down. Negative 0.1 to 0. It's a positive value up there. Down there, it's negative. What about this y-axis? You see this origin here, it also has the left side of the y-axis, on the right too. Then it's minus 0.05. Until, a time. Positive 0.05, so that's where it's at. Then we monorailed it. I'm fine with 2 sections of 1 track. So this one is generated. The same generates the above. We can box it. Cluster it up. Right-click and you can group. If you don't want to group, you can disband the group. What about after the group? You can make a copy of it. Copy it directly CTRL-C-CTRL-V to get the other side of this article, and then use it to merge. What about these keisters? I got it all. What about the location of this keel? If you're going to be this way, you're going to be this way. Then you need to adjust the value. The first one, for example. You're going this way. You adjusted the first value. Okay, then you'll have to adjust the second word. Interjection of surprise. How do I adjust this value? First you need to copy this thread. And then you can here, let's say it's 0.1 meter from here to here. So you have to type in a 0.1 enter. And then lay hold of this nearest point. And then this. In that case, 0.1 m. As the furthest side of it. Then you're going to have to move the number to this position. So can it be completely patched in at this point? What about this one? It is indeed a bit difficult. You can estimate it. It doesn't matter if there's a slight error. So this is 0.1. What about the others? You can adjust this again. Tune up. And what about the following? That's what you call it. Interjection of surprise. What about this distance? Get a grip on yourself. Because it's not the distance that's indicated here. It's a ratio. What about a ratio? You can baker out this keel for it And that's how we got these keisters below. Of an unmarried couple, be close. You see this battery pack? You can practice on your own.